to discover or define marriage as God defines it. And in scripture, the first book in the Bible, actually, the book of Genesis, introduces us to the genesis of marriage. Isn't it funny that in the Genesis, the first book of the Bible, the first major thing that we see after creation is God coming up with the idea of marriage. And so marriage is really God's idea. Marriage is God's gift to us, humanity. And I like the words that Genesis says about marriage. In Genesis chapter 1, just before God created Eve, he said it was not, he looked at Adam and he said it was not good for man to be alone. And so I look at the marriage institution as God's idea, and it has a particular function or purpose or role that it should serve. And if you look at that statement, it is not good for man to be alone, meaning that there's a sense of companionship. God is very big on companionship, that he actually goes right ahead and comes up with a bright idea of ensuring that this man, this lonely Adam man in the vast garden, beautiful Garden of Eden, is not alone. And so he comes up with a bright idea of putting Adam to sleep. And when Adam goes to sleep, what happens? God brings up a prototype. He brings up a man with a womb. And Adam wakes up from his sleep and he says, whoa, this is just too much. The beauty was too much. I say, whoa, man, like this is a man with a womb. So a woman comes to complement and to be a companion to complement this man in this life. And the Bible actually calls it a helpmate. So Eve comes to the scene to join Adam as a helpmate. As a Greek, root word there is as a strong helper. You cannot help someone if you're weak. So God brings a very strong helper. And they're particular for those who are, I'm a student of psychology, rather, I'm a trained psychologist. And so we talk about personalities, we talk about identities, we talk about so many things that makes a woman unique, temperaments, and a man unique. For those who are a bit of readers, about men are from Mars and women are from Venus. So that whole complementarity is what sometimes makes us brush on each other. Anytime that we have vast differences between us, and these differences are not emotional differences, the differences are what I call the identity, biological differences, the makeup differences. I like telling people that if you can't make up your mind, mind your makeup. If you can't make up your mind, you need to mind your makeup. Because some people take a long time before they make a decision. So that's what I'm talking about, make up your mind. But how do you mind your makeup? Look at your biology, look at your creation, look at where you came from, look at what God says about you. Then you realize there's so much we can actually go back to God and say, God, how do I do this thing? So number one, we need to agree that marriage is God's idea. And anytime you are dealing with something that is not yours, I like what Dr. Miles Monroe says, that the person who knows more about the product is the manufacturer, not the user. So many people are trying to use marriage, if I'm using that word loosely. They're trying to enjoy the benefits of marriage, but they're not going back to the manual. Anytime you get a product that you've never used before, for example, you buy a TV or a gas cooker, a laptop, a gadget, the first thing that you need to come alongside with that product you've never used is something called a manual. And that manual is what you use as a guide. It's an A to Z of how to use this thing to its best optimum functionality. And it is so sad when I looked at the notes that Douglas shared with me earlier on this topic of redeeming the marriage institution. It is very sad that some people are not keen to go back to the manual of marriage, of how a functional marriage, God's way, looks like. And they do it their way. And so what happens? They crash on it. They break on it. And as a marriage counselor, my office, and Douglas has had a chance to come to my office, at the couples clinic on Gong Road, on Applewood Adams Plaza. I meet couples sometimes who walk into my clinic and they have been married for 3, 4, 10 years. And when they start sharing with me what they're going through and why they think they've reached the end, I just discovered there are some lies that they have believed. So allow me, if you are single in this group, I wasn't told a brief whether you guys are married or singles, but I imagine that you are both married and singles. But should it be that you are all singles or you're all married? Allow me just to share, because sometimes what I've learned is when you are forewarned, then you are forearmed. When you know in advance what you will be dealing with, what to expect, you are armed in advance. So to be forewarned is to be forearmed. Now, I want to just share with you, because of time, like I said, 5 common lies. I would have shared just 10 from one dear brother who has penned his thoughts on this issue. And he says 5 common lies that people enter into marriage and they end up in divorce. The lies that lead people, that if we don't detect early on, become pointers or lead to divorce. So what are these 5 common lies about marriage that, if not checked in advance, if not unpacked, then may lead us to that place where we say, this thing is not working. So the first lie is marriage is a contract. That's a myth. Marriage is a contract is a lie. Yes, marriage could be and is a legal contract, but that is how the secular world defines it. What is a contract? A contract is you do your part, I do my part. When it doesn't work, we're out. And so I want to say that in God's eye, marriage is more than a contract. God takes it a step higher. Marriage is a covenant. A covenant is an unbreakable promise. So if we enter into marriage without understanding that marriage is more than in God's lens or God's definition, it is more than a covenant. It's more than a contract, sorry. It is a covenant. And a covenant, by definition, is an unbreakable promise. Can you imagine some of the promises that you've made that you've broken? Now, one of those things that if you make, you're not supposed to break is a marriage. So it is a life commitment. Marriage is a life commitment. It means for better or worse, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health. It means loving someone when you don't feel like it, when there's nothing in it for you and you're just feeling like, I'm done, I'm out. It means staying faithful, working through difficulty and bad times, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Marriage is not supposed to be seasonal, in season and out of season. When you're having your bad days and you're having your good days, when their spouse is not adding up, not meeting you at the place where you thought they should, and you're thinking, I got a raw deal, that is when this covenant is supposed to be a place of, I call it, marriage is a training ground. I like saying that marriage works only when they are workers. And in this case, you need to be committed workers. And so the first lie is marriage is a contract. Then in the biblical definition, it is more than a contract, it is a covenant, which is an unbreakable promise. Lie number 2, I married you, not your family. When people enter into marriage with this mentality or philosophy of, I'm only marrying the person I'm marrying. For example, my wife is called Ruth. When I married Ruth on 6th of December 2003 at 11:49 a.m. on a Saturday, in that chapel, when I said I do, I discovered that there were her family side. Even the setup of our wedding, we had tents. There was the side of the bride, the side of the groom. And so I was marrying Ruth, but she came as a package from a family. It's called the family of origin, with values, with culture, with how they did things in their family. And I came with my values, my culture, how I did, my preferences, my taste, how I did things. But also I came with my siblings and my parents. I came with things I'd picked up. I'm a product of the family I grew up in. So the truth is, you don't marry just your spouse. You get her as a family package. The package of the family where she grew up she's part of, or even your husband. So don't kid yourself and think that they outlawed in-laws. Some of us, when you get married, you'll find some in-laws that are outlawed. You can't stand them. They matter. Imagine your spouse grew up in a family that taught her or him how to be who they are today. So there are other influences and people that have affected or taught her who she is or him. And so family is a primary force in the development of any individual. We talk about, in psychology, we talk about nurture and nature. So we have our nature, which is God, but we have our nurture. The primary place of nurture for all of us is our family of origin. So when you get married to someone, don't go with this like, I'm only married to you. I don't care whatever else your family is. Trust me, you'll soon be dealing with the in-laws. And those in-laws can easily become outlaws. And it can become very difficult. So that's the second line. The third line that people enter to marriage with, I can change my spouse. Wrong. The fact that she or he is continually late, or her apartment, when you visit them and you find their room is always a mess and they're just untidy. When you notice that when you are dating, for those who are single, you're dating with this person and you just find they're unkempt, there are some things they lie, there are things they're not doing correctly, and you're telling yourself, wacha tu, nikisha moa, I'll be Jesus. I'm going to change this person. Guys, hear it from me. I've been married 20 years. Those things only get worse. They don't. There are many things that you can never change in a person. So pay attention. That's why we talk about the red flags. Pay attention to the red flags that you see during dating relationship, especially the more serious ones, like someone who is drinking too much, violent temper, promise breaking. They make promises that they're not willing to keep. Chances are that these things won't improve, but they actually may worsen after the honeymoon period is over. The truth is, all you have control over, the only thing you have control over is your reaction to your spouse. That's the only part you can change. So as you date, and this is now for singles, please don't date with closed eyes. Date with open eyes. The only place I advise people that you feel free to jump out is in the dating stage. And as Okuta said earlier, that sometimes when people are in this space of dating, we feel constrained. We feel like I'm already too in. I can't jump out. No, dating is a free space. It is an environment where you know each other, and if you discover too much and you realize I can't handle this, brother, sister, jump out. You are allowed to ship out in dating. It gets harder when you enter into the courtship stage. So into the courtship stage, you're supposed to use the dating experience to take all your notes, see all the red flags. If you say, this one, Nikona Roju, I can handle it, then enter the next level, which is the courtship. So please remember that you cannot deceive yourself that you're going to change someone once you get married to them. Number 4, we are too different. When you say that we are too different, differences are not a major problem as long as the differences are not about life values and morals. You will never ever get this thing called compatibility. So incompatibility does not kill a relationship. The fact that you are incompatible will not kill a relationship. You may, in fact, what makes marriage or relationship attractive is when iron sharpens iron. Proverbs 27:17. When there's a difference, when you are different, it's like there's an excitement of just learning, knowing, rubbing on each other, and getting better. You only grow when there's the sparks. So I want to say that we must learn to handle our differences. You need compatible styles that work for both of you, because some differences are unsolvable and couples need to learn to accept those differences. For example, I remember a couple that one lady was SDA and this guy was a staunch Catholic, staunch SDA, staunch Catholic. And they love each other. They've been through university. They've been dating for 4 years. Now they're graduating. They're saying, well, we are graduating with both our degrees, but we also want to graduate with each other. I'm graduating with my master's, and my master will be you. And no, you'll be my sweetheart. So they were ready to get married. And then they hit this black spot called their religion, their denominational differences. And the lady says, I am not living SDA. Guys, I'm not living Catholic. What do we do? And I remember walking through with this couple for 7 weeks in their premarital. It was a tough one. But they said, we will have to agree that, we are not fighting about denomination, but we'll find a solid faith around our family. That was a long while back, over 10 years ago. I've watched that couple today, and I'm amazed at how God has worked through them and in them. And now they go to one church. 10 years down the line, they go to one church. I won't say which one, but they reached a point they realized we can harmonize. But it was a big fight. That difference of their denomination was a big one. So you can't say that we are too different, so we can't get married. No, differences are okay as long as you're willing to know, you have the capacity to work through the difference so that as the Bible says, when we get to learn to resolve conflict in a godly way, in a biblical way, then it works. So no conflict or difference is too big for God not to work through. And number 5, which is the last one, saying that I've lost that loving feeling and I think it's gone. When you reach a point where you feel, I used to love, for example, you're in the dating stage and you love this person, you can't wait for your date. When you have a date, you are really countdown when the date will start, and you are waiting at this restaurant, sitting and looking everywhere. Everyone looks like your girlfriend, and you just wish they're there. And then you start dating, and let's say 6 months, 1 year, 2 years of dating, and you reach a point where you can't find that loving spark, that romantic feeling. That should not be a signal that is over. I strongly believe that intense passion doesn't last forever, but love can stay for a lifetime. Romantic feelings will die. That sense of connectedness, when you see them, your heart goes paragasha. That can go, but love, agape, it remains for a lifetime if you choose so. You may not always feel love, but you must determine to love your partner as yourself. The loving feeling dwindles when couples lock into negative patterns that lead them away from each other. So remember that it is okay to reach a point where you don't feel romantically, moved, even when the person comes here, especially when in marriage. You reach a point where you don't feel each other, but it's more than romantic feelings. You need to dig deeper to that place of the agape love. And when you work on that, slowly, this becomes something that now you can work on. I was looking at the story of Hosea. Hosea chapter 1 verse 2 amazed me. God instructs Hosea to marry a woman who is a prostitute. Actually, she's called a woman of the harlot woman. Can you imagine you're being told to marry a woman who is a prostitute? And then I went through the chapters in Hosea, and I was amazed at how vast the book of Hosea paints a picture of a redemptive God, a God who knows that we are messing up, we are walking in sin. This woman is actually going out and sleeping with other men, in wrong arms. And Hosea constantly gets back Gomer, his wife, to his bed and serves her. And when I asked myself, why is this book given in the Bible? And now the goal of this book is just how God puts up with your madness and your nonsense. God puts up with your idolatry and your adultery. We walk out on God. We do things that are ungodly. And because God is a faithful groom, he calls the church his bride. He woos back his bride over and over. Can you imagine if God were to give up on us, then we give up on our relationship? For those who have your exes here, maybe you had a relation that now you have an ex. Can you think of the worst that someone could ever do to you? When I counsel with couples, I always ask them in my first premarital session, what is your deal breaker for this marriage? And people who walk in with deal breakers, I tell them, you will find it by the 3rd week. You will find that deal breaker. It will come to pass. So if you don't have the grace, the tenacity, the willingness to forgive and be like Hosea, who extends grace and love to Gomer and gets back his bride, then you are not seeing the picture of God, because God is a faithful groom who constantly woos back his bride because he has a purpose and a mission to accomplish with his bride, which is loving on his bride. That is what I would share in terms of the 5. Whatever. Allow me to pause there and find out if you are listening or I was talking to myself. I hand it back. Let me drop the mic. Is anybody here? Or you all left?
Yes, we are there. We were waiting for Anne to take over since Douglas is not around.
Hi everyone. Sorry, I thought Douglas is back because he had just told me to only begin the meeting. But it is okay. Thank you so much, Reverend Ken. That was profound. I felt like it was just clear. Maybe we can hear feedback. I don't know whether you have time, maybe to just hear feedback from the youth,
yes.
1 or 2.
5 minutes. I'll give you 5 minutes of feedback.
Yeah, we can hear feedback, at least something that we've been able to get from the talk tonight. Okay, Joylene.
Okay, thank you. The session was good. It was really on point. I have a question. I know you've spoken quite at length about forgiveness and about that your deal breakers will be broken. You've talked about that in marriage, but also I'm just wondering, is there then a point where if that when it becomes too much, do you forgive and forgive over and over? When is it okay to walk out? In short, that's what I'm asking.
Thank you, Julian. Appreciate it. Can I pick, if there's any other question, then I'll combine them. If that's okay.
Anyone else with a question?
Okay.
So maybe to ask, for example, you are dating someone, and then you realize that what you really hate is what these people like usually ignore or rather love doing. So for example, like on matters hiyo cleanliness, kama umejaa mtu, maybe somebody is immaculately clean, like ako msafi kabisa, alafu unapata mwingine like si msafi vile, but inakaa ya huyu mtu like una feel kama I've just used that as an example, like what you hate much. For example, ana hate uchafu ama nini, alafu unapata mtu like sometimes unaonekana na hiyo uchafu, like that is just an example. Like how do you handle that, like in a dating, like that can you find maybe how to handle it, ama you just walk away kwa sababu at some point una feel like this is becoming too much. That is
Thank you. Thank you. Allow me just to take those two. I will start with yours, the one you just asked right now. Now, the issue of discovering something that, let's say, a behavior, an action that you find you can't stand. Okay, it's very normal, and that's, like I said, we should not run away from differences. One of the things I've learned is, and I tell couples, don't ever lose your voice, especially in the dating stage of a relationship. Never lose your voice. What is people losing your voice? There are people who, because of love, they diminish or sweep things under the carpet. If you find someone is not neat, for example, amekuja na ni mwanaume, unaona ana harufu ni kama hata hawezi pata perfume ya 50 bob, akinua mkono ni anointing inanuka kama doom, jasho, just hey, bro, niache bana, please. Grooming, viatu unakuta mtu hawezi hata kupanguza, anakuja na vumbi na ni date. You are even uncomfortable being on a date with someone. One of the things that I want to say marriage really has helped me when we are dating, there are things my wife would tell me, hiyo sweater unapenda sana, but when you come and we are hanging out together on a date, I don't like you to wear that. And I was like, that's my favorite, sweater or whatever jacket. And she said it was misrepresenting her. And so I struggled, and I thank God that my grooming changed over time. But with her help, she was gracious, said, I am concerned. So the next thing I know is my birthday. Nimebaiwa kasweta, nimebaiwa, those gifts that she's bringing, because she knows I want you to look okay, look nice, that I'm happy being around you. Sometimes we criticize, but we don't have a solution. So when you criticize something in a date, for example, someone you're going out with, please offer a solution. Don't just be a critic who does not offer a solution. And if you realize you're offering a solution and your solutions are being trashed or not being taken, at that point, like I said, the dating stage is where you are free to run away. Do the Joseph thing, jiondoe. Just leave and say, you know what? this is a red flag. Clearly, it's not changing. I don't have the grace to handle this in marriage. So yes, it's okay to step back and say, you know what, if we cannot make amendments at this stage, I'm not entering into the courtship and eventually marriage with you. That's okay. The first question, which is where I want to conclude with, is what is the deal breaker in marriage? The Bible has some, and actually, when I look at 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 1, the Bible says at what point you can actually leave someone. When someone cheats on you, when someone defiles the marriage bed should be kept holy, the Bible says. If you reach a point where someone is deliberately, like the Hosea story, God was giving a picture of this prostitute who goes to mess up, but that was just God showing us that even where there is cheating, if you have the grace and you realize this person is not their character, but they, because of one reason or another, they messed up, and you reach a point, you go through counseling, or you talk about it, and realize, the person is remorseful, they are repentant, and they're willing to change. I have met couples who have been cheating, and these couples have worked through their cheating and they came back. But I also met couples where someone just goes out and cheats on you and it's their character issue. At that point, I want to say the Bible gives us the freedom to walk out, because you don't want to sit in that place whereby you are in a marriage that now the Bible says that the gifts of God, the blessing of God maketh rich and they add no sorrow. If marriage is God's idea, therefore marriage is God's gift, how can you be in a marriage that stifles and kills everything in you? Where abuse, for example, physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse is happening, and you sit there because you are a dear sister or brother in the Lord. That will not be wisdom. So as a therapist, I walk couples through stages and say, we're going to walk through this and try and work out this issue. If you reach a point where like this is something that you cannot stand and you're actually getting worse, you're killing you, you didn't get married to die. So we are not signing a covenant to die. By death, I mean here, where someone intentionally goes out, does something they know that it is killing you and is against, your values, and they keep excusing it away. At that point, I want to say it is okay to call it quits. And that's normally one of the toughest things I as a therapist, a marriage, especially as a pastor, I find it so difficult when it reaches that stage. But the truth is, no one wants to sit there and they're being hurt. They're being physically abused. They're being beaten. The other day, someone called me and said, "Do you know what? I've been beaten for the last 7 years. I just couldn't speak because I'm a pastor's wife. I have to look good, but I'm dying." I said, the person, "Hey, I don't want you to write a suicide note saying Pastor Ken is the one I told her I was dying and didn't say nothing." I said, I'm summoning this couple, and I told this brother, you cannot be beating your wife. So please, can I ask you how bad you want a wife? If you don't want a wife, tell her goodbye and stop it, because that is not the reason why you marry the person. So don't sit there waiting to die because you are a good Christian. That will be my take.
All right, maybe before Ken Aringo leaves, I want to appreciate you, Reverend, for coming. I hope you can hear me, guys.
Yes, I can. Yes.
Yeah, I know you're really prepared for this, and but we're still going to have it. I'm also sorry because I've got another engagement. My daughter is not feeling well, so I think it's just a Evita. So my wife came from work and she found my daughter not feeling well, so I had to really work on how to take her to the hospital. So that's why I've not been talking, but thank you for joining.
Well, sir.
Yeah, we are hoping to hear from you. And Anne Karabu is here. I think you remember Anne Karabu when doing the book launch. So these are campus students from different campuses, mostly the Christian Union members. We'll talk more about this. We're organizing a get-together. And for members who are here, Reverend Aringo said if that day is working with him, he'll come and finish with us. So we're still going to pray that God gives you that time to come and have a fellowship with us. We are praying for you. May God give you strength, and may God strengthen even the family that you're going to visit. We release you. We release you, but we'll allow you to maybe, we'll meet again, we'll talk about this. So we release you now, maybe we can just release you, and we'll pray for you as you go, as we end this. I want to allow Anne to continue as he gets feedback. And then from there, I think we'll just finish the session. Yeah, so